Rico was a small bulldozer who did odd jobs around the island of Sodor. He was the same size as Terence the tractor, but was a little older. Nowadays, Rico would occasionally work at a Nofa quarry on Thomas's branch line, where Mavis worked, or the China clay pits. Rico's job here was to clear away any debris or gravel that had fallen onto the tracks instead of the trucks. Rico preferred to work at the Nofa quarry, as he was always pleased to be in the company of the likes of Toby, Thomas or Mavis. But I'm sorry to say, when it came to the clay pits, it was a very different story. One morning, Bill and Ben arrived at the clay pits to start work earlier than usual. The Fat Controller had asked them to prepare a large train of stone trucks for Boko to collect. They had just turned a corner when something caught their eye. "I told you it was going to look like that already," puffed Bill. "Looks like I owe you 2 lumps of coal," chuckled Ben. Sure enough, there in front of them was Rico. He was being tended to by 2 quarrymen who were mending his engine. "Oh dearie me, Rico," puffed Bill. "Have we broken down again already?" "It's not even the crack of dawn yet," laughed Ben. "Nothing of the sort, you rapscallions," roared Rico. "This is just routine check, that's all." "Do you know what, Rico," huffed Bill, "one of these days you're going to fall apart." "It'll be such a shame," huffed Ben. "It always happens to the oldies round here, doesn't it?" "No wonder we youngsters are still getting on," chortled Bill. It was lucky for Rico that the quarry manager had sent Bill and Ben on their way to start work. He was hurt by their words and very cross. Despite his age, Rico was always determined to prove he was really useful all the same. Later that day, Rico's engine had been mended and he had been cleaned and polished. Bill and Ben had managed to sort out Boko's trucks and had been sent to work on another part of the island later that day. For a while, Rico was alone with his thoughts. Before long, Boko arrived to collect his train. "Hello, Rico," he called. "How are we keeping?" Okay, I suppose," said the old bulldozer. He then told Boko all about Bill and Ben. "I'll take no notice of them," Boko said. "They know when to quit when they're ahead." "How do you think Edward and I managed to keep them in order?" "Is that why Duck calls them the bees?" asked Rico. "I suppose so," chuckled Boko. "Like I said, don't let the twins get you down. They'll come round and see how useful you are in time." Rico gave a small smile. Soon Boko was ready to leave and he left the clay pits with his trucks. Just as he had been before, Rico was left alone with only his thoughts for company. "Would you two like to explain to me what you've said about Rico?" he asked. "We didn't say anything," began Bill. "Don't give me that," huffed Edward. "Boko told me." "What do you expect from an old bulldozer, Edward?" huffed Bill. "He just sits in corners of the quarry and does nothing," huffed Ben. "He's too old to be useful." "Oh, and I suppose if I was to sit in a siding and rust away, would you call me old and useless?" asked Edward. "As I thought," said Edward. "Rico might be the oldest resident on Sodor, but at least he tries to work hard and be useful for the Fat Controller. Now, I'd advise you to make it up to Rico when you go back to the clay pits in the morning. He might surprise you, as I've surprised the mainline engines in the past." With nothing else to say, Edward puffed away. For the rest of the night, Bill and Ben were strangely quiet. The next morning, the dock manager asked Bill and Ben to help out around the harbour. The Fat Controller asked Thomas and Mavis to head up to the clay pits and arrange the morning trains. Mavis was pleased to be out of the quarry, and Thomas was happy for a change of scenery besides his branch line. Before long, Thomas was bustling backwards and forwards with trucks full of stone, but he was getting overexcited. "Slow down," huffed Mavis. "You're going to have an accident." "I don't have accidents," boasted Thomas. "Oh, so you didn't fall into a jetty then," muttered Mavis quietly. But as the day went on, Thomas got more and more careless. He shunted 6 fully loaded trucks of stone into an old siding. Mavis, sensing that something was about to happen, darted after him. "Stop!" she yelled, but it was too late. Thomas watched in horror as, by a dent in the track, the first truck came clean off the rails, followed by the rest. The next thing Thomas and Mavis knew, they were up to their buffers in stone, which surrounded them. Oops," said Thomas innocently, blushing a deep shade of red. "Oops indeed," said Mavis. "How are we going to get out of this?" "Can I help?" called a voice from the corner of the clay pits. When Thomas and Mavis saw where the voice came from, they were more than happy to see who had come to the rescue. "What happened to you two?" exclaimed Bill. We had a accident," said Thomas. "You had an accident," cut in Mavis, "but it's all fine now." "But how did you manage to clear up the mess in such good time?" asked Ben. At that moment, Rico appeared with the quarry manager. "It's a good thing Rico was here to clear up the mess," he said to the twins. "Had he not, it would have been a different situation. I hope you both understand that Rico is an essential member to our clay pits, no matter how old he is." Bill and Ben felt very ashamed. "We're sorry we were rude, Rico," said Bill. "You're really useful and you've certainly proved it," said Ben. "Oh, that's all right," said Rico. "You're both forgiven." "Now, if you excuse me, clearing up that mess made me tired. I'll see you all later." And Rico went to his favourite place in the clay pits and went to sleep. "Well," said Bill, "what do you think of that?" "We will certainly never bother a bulldozer ever again," said Ben. And the twins kept to their word.